I don't know who you are, but welcome to the Irish Photography Podcast. Sit back, relax, and listen about cameras, gear, settings, stories, and all things photography. Join Darren on Ireland's Best Photography Podcast. Let's go.
It was Christmas Eve.
babe.
How's it going, boy?
Oh,
Merry
man.
Christmas, Happy Christmas, and all that malarkey and BS.
Yeah, well, we're Christmas Eve now. We've
We are.
one last run. Hopefully Santi will come to all the boys and girls around the world, COVID permitting.
Absolutely. Hopefully, yeah. Do you know he's got a special one? No, he's got the vaccine to beat all vaccines. He can come out after 8 o'clock.
Oh, well, listen, if it's one thing we won't be doing, tonight, Christmas Eve, is out having a few pints after 8 o'clock, which is unfortunate. It's unfortunate. I'm not a big drinker myself, but I think now the fact that this has been going on and we're not allowed, pubs are closed and restaurants are closed after 8 o'clock, it kind of puts the want that you do want to be out,
Absolutely. It's always the way. You always want what you can't have. And when it's there on your doorstep, you never go to it. But the moment it's taken away, you go, oh, I want to have that. I want to have that. But anyhow, it's like you coming on the podcast. It's been a number of months since you were on, and I wanted you on a number of times. So I'm delighted to get you on here now to catch up over what's been an up and down year. So welcome back to the Irish Photography Podcast, Bernard Geraghty. How are you getting on,
Yep,
man?
I'm very good. And thanks very much for having me back on. And, probably unlike other times you having me on, this, I suppose, was me approaching you to come on to talk about some things that, have been affecting me over the last few months, and not to play the poor me game, but actually just, I'd say I can just probably relate to a lot of people. It's probably the most I will open up publicly, because I suppose Instagram being the business, Facebook being the business part of it, not a lot of people see the personal and private side of things. So, yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be something different. And I think, as I say, a lot of people can probably relate to what we will talk about. And
I
hopefully
would think
someone
so.
can take some advice on board and say, okay, well, things aren't too bad.
Absolutely. Look, do you know what? I mean, when you said to me, let's do a podcast in relation to this, I'd said to you, yeah, absolutely, man, because it's something that, I believe a lot in, that we need to talk about more as men, particularly, but as human beings. And, coming up to Christmas as well, I mean, it is a joyous occasion, but it's very hard for a lot of people as well. And I think it's something that, we should really kind of delve into the topic at a time right now where a lot of people will be going through different things in their heads on a daily basis, and they're surrounded by all this, I have to be happy, I have to be full of fun, I have to be joyous and stuff like that. But deep down, everybody has their own way of dealing with things, so it's not always the happiest time of the year for everybody. And I think that's why I said, you know what, good time for us to kind of look back on the year, but also talk about a topic which is mental health and the importance of mental health, and also I think how photography can help us to overcome some of the challenges that we get on a regular basis. So I was delighted when you had said, you know what, let's do a podcast on this. And I'm delighted now to kind of delve into the overall conversation on it.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't want people thinking this is solely going to be a big depressing podcast as well. Like, listen, I think everyone in terms of mental health is always on the spectrum. You're always just below or above that line of happiness or sadness, really. But I don't want people thinking this is going to be depressing. I think this is going to, open a lot of eyes up to how I feel, because, on a daily basis, you get people, you have the life of Riley, you have the best life in the world, you're living the dream job. And it'll probably give people an insight as to what, I go through in my daily life, especially during a pandemic. And then, like, realize then, well, Jesus, I don't feel too bad now having a bad day, because the person who gets to travel the world for his job also has bad days. And it doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter how little money you have, how happy you are, how sad you are, everyone just has bad days. And I don't want to zone in too much on, okay, we're always unhappy and this is depressing and stuff. But, it is nice to just open up every now and again and give people a little insight as to what, you or me or anyone else may go through on a daily or a weekly basis.
I fully agree with you. And, people who are listening to this are like you and me. No one is any way different. We all have different thoughts that go through our head on a daily basis. And it's about trying to organize those thoughts. I mean, to give you an idea, the average person has 50,000 thoughts per day. 50,000 thoughts per day. And 98% of that is just brain chatter, things that you do and you take for granted, but they're thoughts. And if you have to be working your brain on a constant basis and
Yeah.
you're heading in one direction or another direction, like there's two types of stress that people can have. There's distress, which is the negative stress, and there's also eustress, which is a positive stress. And if somebody is constantly in a distressed phase, they brush over the positivity because they're in a negative phase. If somebody is constantly in a positive, then when they do hit a crash, they crash hard. And I think
Yeah.
that's an important one that we need to, really get in from the outset. I mean, what we're going to talk about today, we're not scientists, we're not professors in relation to it. You and I are just two ordinary blokes who have thoughts and think about things in certain ways. And the listeners are going to think, I think, very, very similar in relation to that. So I think there's a lot that people can gain from this conversation.
Do you know what? Just something very quick, and it's something I probably didn't include in the little notes for this podcast. And when you're talking about, having like these big highs and, the lows or whatever, just an example of that is, and it's something I've learned over the past few months, is that I think everyone, when you hit your 30s, it should almost be mandatory that everyone has a counselor or a therapist that they see maybe once a month or once every 2 months. And the reason I say that is because I've started a few months ago, and why I started was to deal with the highs of these almighty trips.
Hmm.
These trips that your adrenaline is running, you're putting all your maximum effort into, your work and your clients and the weather and your conditions and the locations. And I swear to God, Darren, like if I was to come home from, say, the Faroe Islands tonight, and I'm talking to you
Hmm.
now, and I'd be absolutely buzzing, tomorrow I would just be a ball of stress, anxiety, depression, and not necessarily depression, but just a depression, a day of
Hmm.
depression.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it's not a healthy thing to keep having to have those ups and downs, and huge ups and very, very low downs. So like, if there's one thing I've learned over the past few months is that, when you get into that 30s phase, when you have to start taking jobs serious and you're looking at loans and cars and mortgages and babies and bills and all this kind of stuff, is when you can be at your most vulnerable. And it should literally like a bloody vaccine, it should be something everyone should have on offer at the click of a finger, but we don't, unfortunately. But yeah, that's just something, a little bit of insight.
But I think it's very interesting insight because if you think about it, like you're going to the Faroes as an example, right? You are on a high, your clients are on a high, you're all feeding off of that. You know, people who do performances, they go on stage, they put everything on the stage, and after that, they're spent. And the following day, they're left with a void because your endorphin release, your serotonin release has gone through an all-time high, and all of a sudden you're depleted in relation to it. So there's a chemical imbalance in relation to having so much fun that want to chase that fun again. And I think it's potentially, in a way, a bit like an addiction, because when you have something that you enjoy so much, you always are chasing that high. You want to get that high back. And when you haven't got that, you're left with something and you're going, Jesus, hang on a second. I've just come back from this amazing trip, or I've just had this great night out.
Yeah.
I should be delighted. But your body is drained because you've actually put so much into it. And like when we think about photography in like, have you heard of therapeutic photography?
Not really, no. As I say, I don't delve too much into the whole mental health aspect, and I wouldn't be an advocate for it. I just try to get on with it and live my own life and do my own job as best I can. The way I look at it is, I'm not an advocate because I'm definitely not an expert in it. I can only share
Hmm.
the feelings I have to hopefully help others. So in
Hmm.
general,
Hmm.
I wouldn't really know much about the science behind it, or the words, or anything like that.
Well, I'll give you a very simple example, and I guarantee you've heard this from some of your clients that have gone in the workshops. I don't mind. It's just good to get out. I don't mind. It's just good to get away for a few
Yeah.
days. I don't mind. I can switch off. I don't have to think about work. That's therapeutic photography in a way that you're actually able to step away from your day to day, as you say, when you're an adult, all the pressures that you have to be an adult. And you can spend that bit of time, whatever it is, a morning, an afternoon, a couple of days, a week. It's a step away from reality. And that's then where you actually can start seeing things for what they really are. Because, like those 50,000 thoughts, majority of those, like I say, are brain chatter. They're happening every single day. You're under the pressures of, like, for example, my job. I think about things a lot in my job. And when I go taking photos, I'm not thinking about those.
Yeah.
And the problem or the challenge that I had is more than likely right underneath my nose. but I wasn't able to see it because my mind was full of all that chatter that was going on. So there's therapeutic photography in the first instance. The second is, you take photography aside, getting outdoors, breathing in fresh air, exercise. Exercise is the most powerful thing that we have to keep us fit and healthy, but also to keep our mind fit and healthy. And when you're out and about and you're getting clients that are going on your trips, okay, you're getting amazing conditions. I know we joke, that you sold your soul to the devil because you can always find the sunlight, but that's something which is bringing them even higher. And then you're feeding on that high as well.
Yeah.
So when people leave a trip, they've had an amazing time because they've been away from reality. It's like going on a holiday, back to reality. Whoops, there goes gravity. I got to come back to it again.
Yeah.
So photography is really, really good to give your head some peace, some quiet, some space to be able to think about things, to line up those thoughts without all the stuff people who are. How many distractions do you think we have every day? And I know we'll touch on it at the moment in relation to social media, right? The positives and the negatives in relation to it. But the noise that comes from your phone every single day, emails, text messages, Snapchats, WhatsApps, Facebook messengers, Facebook notifications, all of these things, they get in the way of having clear thoughts. And do you ever get in a situation where you might be thinking about something and somebody will ring you about something else, and all of a sudden you're forgetting what you were doing and you're now gone off down that tangent, and before you realize it, you were going, Jesus, man, look, I'm after going down 4 miles, hypothetically speaking, to the right-hand side when I should have only gone a mile to the left to find where I was looking for. So photography allows us to get away from all that, see the wood from the trees, to pardon the pun, but then to be able to enjoy that moment. So the camera is a great tool, but I think it's something that, again, have you heard that from your clients that have gone on workshops with you?
Absolutely, because I always try. So I suppose when you talk about me selling my soul to the devil and always seeming to find the light, right? It's because I like to set a standard as to where it's not to keep my clients happy, it's to keep me happy. And I know that if I'm happy, they will most definitely be happy. And when I spend so much time like looking at the weather and contemplating decisions and throwing out suggestions, and the one thing that comes to mind most of the time is most clients turn around and say, sure, Bernard, it's great to be out, and if we don't get the light, sure, so be it. And it's nice to hear that, but still I'm like, no, we need to go that one step further and we need to get the light or whatever. And sometimes you just don't get it, it's just not there. But so much, yeah, I've heard that saying, and it does give a sense of relief because you can put yourself under fierce pressure to deliver the goods day in, day out, night in, night out, week in, week out, all this kind of stuff. And then, if you're in a difficult situation and someone turns around and says that, it does give you a little bit of sense of ease and say, well, they are just happy to be out and in nature and seeing things that they wouldn't necessarily see if they weren't witches. So yeah, definitely it's been said a lot on trips, all right. And in general, like for instance, I kind of had a little mini kind of BG landscape tours Christmas party last week, and no, not what some people will think. Yes, I am the accountant, I am the photographer, I'm the tour guide, I'm the organizer, I'm the PR, I'm the marketeer, I'm everything in the business. So it wasn't what people are thinking is that picture of Pablo Escobar sitting on the swing on his own or standing in the pool on his own. I did manage to get a good group of clients together, and 10 of us went to the Glenmalure Lodge, and we had the best crack, and it was last Saturday, and I said, guys, listen, anyone that wants to come early, we go take a few photos, see what happens, and just have a bit of lunch, couple of pints, go for a walk, come back, get a shower, and then go for dinner and have a few more pints. And I brought them up to some of these really, 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 like, I don't even like using the term, but hidden waterfalls, right? And they were amazing, lovely flow and stuff like that. And it was a very dull day. And on the way back, I'd said, listen, we'll just get a bit of lunch. And a couple of them said, well, we head out after. And I'm like, sometimes there's just no point, like, and a couple of them said, don't get out that much. And I said, I totally understand that. But also it's important not to push. Just because you are out, don't feel the need to have to push for an image that might not exist and stuff like that. And they're like, I said, at the end of the day, just look at it this way. You spend 2.5 hours at a waterfall you never knew existed. That's a successful day. And then they're like, yeah, I suppose actually, yeah. And then it was just totally relaxed. And it was about enjoying the moment and not enjoying the shot.
And the other side to it too is that, you've got people that come on their first time tours with you, right? They don't know what to expect. So they've got a certain level of anxiety, let's just say, about meeting people new or meeting new people, going new places. Maybe they'll get the conditions, they won't know how to take a photo or whatever it might be. But you have a fantastic ability to put people at ease right from the very, very beginning. You're fun, you're jovial for them to keep them at ease and such like that. And if you think about that, how many people would at the end of a trip go, geez, I was fierce nervous coming out here, but at the end of this, I'm after delighted I came. I'm really, really happy. And I can't wait now to go back and do the things that I've learned with you on another occasion in another environment or whatever it may be. So, like, you've got a lot of people that would have fears. I mean, I have an acronym for fears, which is false expectations appearing real, right? And that is something that can consume people, that they've got a fear of the unknown. But when you're out on a trip and people are there, they're enjoying it. They're forgetting about all the woes that are there. Then all of a sudden they realize, they go, not only did I have fun, but I made friends that I'm going to keep contact with again and again and again.
And
And that's
and
the most important part, really, isn't it?
and I've some like so many examples I could share, and like it's crazy, right? The amount of examples I have. So, for instance, you're talking about clients coming, and Jesus Christ, I could do a full podcast just on this topic alone, right? Not right now, right? But I'll just throw off a couple there. Um, I found it very hard, right? I found COVID okay, right? The first year and a half of COVID, I found fine. I got to do things I would never do. I got to do bits of construction in my house that I would never get to do, because I would have been so busy or whatever. So, I just was able to get so much stuff done, be it photos, adventures, just general spend time with family, with the dog,
Hmm.
and all that kind of stuff. And I found that fine. But see, when things started to open back up and I went from not seeing anyone to seeing
Hmm.
all of a sudden five people, five people, five people, week in, week out, week in, week out, my anxiety levels were through the roof like never before. Like never, I never experienced anything like the past few months. And you know what's so funny? The last few months, I swear to God, since trips started back in August, right? And everyone, like as you say, selling the soul to the devil. Like the best conditions I've seen on every single trip. I've been to Scotland, I've been to like Slovenia, obviously all over Ireland, um, uh, what you call it, Lofoten Islands, like as Faroe Islands, and
Hmm.
every one of those trips was the best week in those locations I've ever had
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
continuous week, right? But inside, I'm just not right. But
Hmm.
an example was in the Lofoten Islands, right? I just inside, I just was not right. Outside, my clients will always see me. What you're seeing
Yeah.
now, how I'm talking, my enthusiasm levels, my work ethic, my commitment. That will never change, and I can blank it out. I can blank out what's inside and
Hmm.
perform. And that's a great way to be, but it's also not a great way to be, because if you blank it out too much, you tend not to talk. But I
Hmm.
took it upon
Hmm.
myself, after, going to counseling and stuff like that, use my experiences and my own anxieties to help settle the nerves of people who are nervous and, unsettled on coming on trips. And one example was a woman in the Lofoten Islands. I'm not going to name her, but, I know she wouldn't mind me saying, but we just had this kind of moment at a waterfall in the Lofoten Islands where she just became overwhelmed and thought she was the rookie of the group, and she thought she was out of her depth and all this kind of stuff. And truth be told, like most people think that, or they
Hmm.
think they're the
Hmm.
rookie, or they think they're out of their depth. But the reality is, like, they can brush it off very easily and settle very easily. But she found it hard to settle. And this is going to be mad now. And a lot of people won't believe this. But I said to her, listen, let's just call her Mary, right? Her name is not Mary. But
Hmm.
I said, Mary, listen, like at the end of the day, do you have a job? Yeah. Is it stressful? Yeah. Do you have a car? Yeah. Did you ever have car trouble? And she says, yeah. And, does that stress you? Yeah. Do you have family? Yeah. Does that stress you? Well, yes. And I was like, did you buy a camera to be stressed? And she said,
Hmm.
no, I bought it to de stress. And I was like, well, this is where we just, from now on, we just let this be let the camera be the de
Brilliant.
stressor. If you get a shot, you get a shot. If you don't, you don't. And she goes, you're right. We are out, in the nature and all that kind of stuff. And it's amazing. There's amazing waterfall and there's snow. And, inside I couldn't be happier, but I'm just struggling a little bit outside. And I said, Mary, as I say, not a real name, just want to let you in on a little secret that you would have no clue about and none of the group would have a notion about. So where we stay in the Lofoten Islands are these famous red cabins, and they've lovely boardwalks along the a
Hmm.
fjord and stuff like that. And one of the nights, I just wasn't feeling myself. We'd come back from an amazing day of snow and light and pink skies, and it was amazing. But I just inside wasn't feeling right, and I went for a little stroll in at night when it was dark out along the boardwalk along the
Hmm.
fjord, and I just start crying. I just start
Mm.
crying,
Okay.
like for no real reason. Only I just felt I needed to get it out. And I told her this, and you want to see her face, like her face dropped, and she couldn't believe it. And I said, "That's what's going on in inside of me, you know.
Hmm.
So like,
Hmm.
don't feel bad to be feeling out of your depth or feeling like a rookie or a novice or a beginner. Like we all have our little demons. We all, we can't function at 100% all the time, inside and out. So I said, just know that like I'm having the same problems, as
Hmm.
you,
Hmm.
just in different
Hmm.
ways, and it gets me down and stuff like that. And from that the last 5 days of that trip, she was just like a different person, but
Mm.
also in a real nice way because she was asking me every few hours, How are you feeling now, Bernard?" And I'm like, "Don't be worrying about me. I'm fine. And trust me, what I told you, if I can tell you that, if anything else is wrong with me, I can tell you, no problem at all. But we'll just worry about you. Make sure you have that time of your life that you're not coming home stressed, that you're coming home relaxed." And she did. She came home really relaxed, and she just really enjoyed the trip so much. But just one more very quick, and recently when I was in the Isle of Skye, so after that Lofoten trip, right, I was going to do uh, Venice with Rohan Riley. Now I was home
Hmm.
from Lofoten. I had one full day at home in Ireland, and then was gone to Venice again with him. Now up until
Okay.
8 o'clock the morning I was going to Venice, I wasn't even going to go. I
Wow.
wasn't even gonna go. I just wasn't feeling myself. I just didn't feel I could bring anything to the party. Like it wasn't my workshop. I was attending a workshop with Rohan.
Hmm.
And I just was not in the headspace. And Adrian and Hannah were going on it, and there was others going on it. And I obviously told Rohan, and he said, "Listen, there's no pressure." But he said, "I don't mean to tease you, but the conditions look like they're gonna be great with fog." That was a factor as to why I went. But in general, I wasn't gonna go. And I just decided last minute to do it, and it was the best decision I ever made. I just wasn't right. As in, my mom had COVID fairly bad. I hadn't seen her in 2 months. Before Lofoten as well, I'd planned on coming from Connemara, where I'm living now, down to stay in Newbridge in my parents' house to spend a couple of days with my mom and dad before Lofoten. But then, as I was on
Hmm.
my way down to Newbridge, my dad rings me out of the blue and said, "Listen, I meant to tell you the other day, but your mom has COVID." And obviously that devastated me fairly quick. And she's fine, Um, but
Hmm.
obviously I couldn't go and stay. So then I
Hmm.
was halfway to Dublin, and I just had no choice but to just get a hotel. And that probably led to all what was going through my head, along with other stuff in Lofoten. But forward and again, I wasn't going to go to Venice. All this stuff was just catching up on me. And that morning, I decided, just go. And I went and I went, and it was the best trip, one of the best trips I've ever been on. But in Scotland recently, I had a guy, and this was the delayed Scotland trip as well. But one of the guys on it, really nice guy from Dublin. Again, I won't use his name, but I know he wouldn't mind me saying, but we'll call him John. And myself and John had a little moment at a nice little waterfall in Glencoe on the last day. And he says, "Bernard," he says, he says, "It's been a tough year with COVID. I lost my brother who had problems, but eventually COVID killed him off. And he
Wow.
says, it was a tough year. And I was very close to my brother. And in September, I said to myself, I said to the wife, I says, I'm not going to go. I'm going to tell him I'm not going to go." And the wife said, "Wait and see how you feel. Wait and see how you feel." And October came, and he still wasn't up for it. And the wife said, "Just go, John, just
Hmm.
go." And he came on the trip in November anyway. And this moment we had on the last day, he was just like, "It was the best decision I ever made." He says, "I've never experienced anything like this trip. I've never experienced anything like the conditions, the light, the snow, the water, everything, the atmosphere. Like the atmosphere was just absolutely unbelievable on that trip." And I said, the way to look at it, John, is, when you feel like you don't want to do something, try and do it anyway. Just do it anyway, because it's like the gym. You don't want to go to the gym, but when
Absolutely.
you do, you come back, you feel $1 million, and you're glad you went to the gym. So
Hmm.
it's just my
Hmm.
couple of examples of just what you'd said there previously. I know it kind of went on a little bit, but it's probably stuff people can relate to.
100%. And I think, it's interesting you say it, like you've led, I don't know how many workshops over the years, yet you still had that feeling going on a workshop, which is exactly the same feeling that a lot of people would have for a plethora of reasons. There's not one reason as to somebody would say, I can't go on a workshop and this is the only one reason. Your mind will build in so many different things as to why you shouldn't go. But the reality of the situation is you should always do things that scare you. And you'll always find that, again, 99% of the things that we worry about never happen. But yet we build them up in our head so big. And I think
Yep.
everybody has a skill set called hindsight. Okay. But we all also have a thing about looking and learning from what's happened in the past. And every person here has been worried about something. And the moment it finished and going, what was I worried about, man? Sure, geez, that
Yeah.
was perfect. That was bang on. But you build yourself up to an anxiety level, which can be crippling because you're going, I'm not going to do this. I'm afraid of the unknown or what I'm building something up in my head. But the reality was, it was all okay.
Yeah.
But you have to push yourself in there to do that. And that's where I think that you can actually gain confidence through photography, because you can go into something scared shitless and come out the other end and go, do you know what? That was actually great. I've learned a lot of things there. The challenge, though, Bernard, is to keep that feeling. So it's a state of mind that we're in at that point. But if our default state is a lot lower than that, you'll come back down to that level. And then it's hard to reminisce to get back into that state of mind that you were feeling at that one point. And I'll give you a very, very simple example of something, right? Let's say that I said to you, Bernard, I want you to go to XYZ company there, okay? I know you're a qualified plumber as an example, right? So just take the plumbing for a second, right?
Yep.
So, Bernard, I want to go to this company here. They're looking to do 35 new houses, and I want you to be the head guy there to the consulting in relation to all the plumbing for it, okay? So you go, okay, grand job. What's he sending me out for? Sure, I haven't done plumbing in so many years. What if the guy asks me a question about the latest systems? I haven't got a clue.
I
What
literally
if I
wouldn't
know
have a
him?
clue.
Right? And what if I go out there and I mess it up? I can't go back to Darren and say, Darren, we didn't get this. This was a big contract, etc., etc. Right? So you're building all this up before you even go in the door. Okay.
Mhm.
You walk in the door, you're meeting this guy, Michael. And before you meet Michael again, all these things are going through your head at 150 miles an hour. Turns out Michael is sound. Michael is going, Bernard, do you know what, boy? I don't need all the fancy stuff. I want very basic. You got the contract. You want to come over there, you ring me, go, Darren, great news, boy, we got the contract. I'm going, listen, bang on, come on back here, so and we'll start to get things in order, right? You're coming back, you're in the car, you're like, yeah, boy, I got the contract. You're feeling $1 million, okay? You come back to me and I say to you, Bernard, well done, man. The whole team is there going, cheers, well done, Bernard, all high fives. And I say, Bernard, RT are here. They want to do a piece on the new build. I want you to go on the camera. Not a bother, boy, I'm bulletproof. And you'll go on the camera and you'll nail it, okay?
Mhm.
Now, if you went out to Michael and Michael said, listen, thanks very much, but I'm actually looking for something that's more technologically advanced. Sorry about that. You have to now ring me and tell me that you didn't get the contract. I'll say, listen, look, don't worry about it, man. Come back. Look, RTE here, they want to do a big piece. I want you to go on it. Not a chance will
Yeah.
you go on the camera. Now, the reality is you're the same person, but it's the state of mind that you've been in, that high that you've been delivered, which gives you that confidence to
Yep.
feel bulletproof.
Yep.
But the commonality is you, but it's what influenced you from the outside that changes that mindset. And I think that's where, if people go on a photography trip, and not even a photography trip, but even getting out with their camera, and they nail that shot. I remember I got it that time. It was great. It's hard to remember how they did that the next time until you repeat. You remember, I go back to the thing I did with pod with McSnap. Just repeat. The more you do something, the easier it becomes.
Or as
But
he
even
would say, repetition.
repetition. Yeah, exactly. Right. But it's still saying that you still have the innate demon, let's just say, which is the fear and the anxiety of what if I mess up or what if it goes
And-
wrong. And it's all about the what ifs. And the what ifs,
And-
they're too big for what they actually are.
But this is the thing, and as you said earlier, I've done probably hundreds of workshops at this stage, but every single workshop I do, the nerves inside are incredible. And I think it shows that you care, but it's also not a nice feeling. But every single trip seems to just work out absolutely fine, you know. But it's I think the day you stop kind of being nervous and feeling those butterflies are probably the day you should really give up, you know.
Well, that's the thing. Like, and look, before we started recording this, you mentioned about going on the weekend away there with the guys and the folk, the people in Wicklow. And I said, did you go shooting? No, I didn't. What you did was you just sat back and you had a moment of mindfulness in reality, that you were just taking it in for what it is, calming the mind, calming the breath, breathing in the air that you were there. And I think that's an important one as well, because like, how often do we actually stop? Like, your life goes fast. You're living in Connemara, which is a slower pace, let's just say.
Yeah.
But your life is still going fast. How often in reality have you stopped? Even when the whole COVID thing, as you said, you want to keep busy. I want to keep myself busy. I want to be kept busy doing this. But stopping in the landscape, even for 15 minutes or for 20 minutes, and breathe in, get your heart rate down, and actually just take away from the chaos in life. How did that feel, sitting on top of the Land Rover in the middle of Wicklow, without all the stuff going on, chaos going around the world, but you were in your zone there? Were you still anxious during that time?
So the funny thing is, right, myself and a few lads and women went up to the Glenmalure Lodge, and one of them was Cal, who's obviously my videographer. And Cal was all, yeah, I'm going, I'm going. And then at about 3 o'clock, he says he's not going. He says he doesn't feel good. He said he just
Mm.
feels grumpy, and he doesn't feel, like he just doesn't, he's just having a bad day. And he said he's going to leave it. And I said, I actually was very blunt with him, because I knew what I was doing. I wasn't being an arsehole, but I said, Cal, get your arse up here. I says, get
Yeah.
your arse up here. And I said, if someone wanted a video recording done and you had a bad day, would you cancel? And next thing, an hour and a half later, Cal arrives up, right? And I was blunt, because I know Cal, I know what he's like, but I also know that he will not regret it. And he came up, turns out him and Declan, €210 in 5 hours just on drink, right? In 5 hours, right? So the two lads had a great time, and I had this idea to when we were finished, right? They were all right. They were dealing with the drink all right. I says to the rest of them, we need to get these lads out into the fresh air. We need to get them out to the fresh air. And next thing, so we got out. We said we go out and have a bit of fresh air, have a drink outside. Real calm night. And I said the boys weren't out 5 minutes, and they were doing cartwheels and tumbles on the
I
fucking
saw
tarmac and
that.
everything. Yeah. So, like, that was great. So the next morning, anyway, we didn't check out till 12 o'clock. And by the time we got on the road, it was 1 o'clock. So I didn't drink a massive amount, but the lads would obviously been, by that time, were fine, because they would have been in bed since 1 o'clock as well, because the pubs couldn't stay open past 12.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I says to Cal, come on, we're going to Lara. Follow me. We'll go into Lara and we'll get a coffee. And then I said, we'll drive up to the Sally Gap, turn right at the Sally Gap, and go to Loch Tay and sit there for half an hour. So I had this idea getting up towards the top of Loch Tay. And I said, you know what, Cal? I says, we'll park up here on the flat, but we'll actually get up onto the Defender, up onto the roof rack of the Defender, and just sit there and enjoy it all. And he was like, oh, that's a class idea. And it was like 3.5 hours till sunset. And we got up there, the sun was splitting the stones, sitting on the roof rack, looking down at the Loch Tay, the Guinness Lake, and the Lugala across the road, the mountain, sun splitting the trees, blue skies. And then within that 3.5 hours, this cloud inversion came in, and the lake was below the cloud, and the mountains were above the cloud, and the sun was above the cloud, we were above the cloud. But for 3.5 hours, we sat there, and we actually were sitting there beside each other. And, I says, how do you feel now? And he goes, oh man, like, I'm so glad I came up, and this just tops it all off, and that's what it's about. It's just, not just, not just making sure you're okay, but actually just making sure, and all the lads will tell you, and you would, sure, listen, I've talked to you plenty of times, but just, even though it's important to look after number one, but just sometimes giving our buddy a little boost, or literally a boot up the hole sometime, because he might think you're being harsh, at the time, but the next day or 2 days later, he'll be thanking you. And that's what it's all about. And we sat there for 3.5 hours, and I swear to God, not one bit of anxiety, not one bit of thought about COVID or travel, or restrictions. And it was just amazing,
Absolutely. And, we touched on something there a moment ago. And what I'll do, I suppose, is I want to go into this topic in two ways, right? Like, you were able to contact all the guys and such like that through the friendships that you've made from them, and going on workshops and stuff with you, right? So they would have come across your business, and I would have come across these stories as you guys sitting on top of the Defender, the guys doing the cartwheels and everything else through something which we all have in our pocket all day long, which is social media, right? Now, social media, and I know you're an advocate in relation to people complain about social media all the time, but okay, it's free. It is free, absolutely. It's a great avenue to be able to get the message out there of what you're doing. It's a great way to meet new people. It's a great way to meet friends and stuff like that. But what I wanted to discuss on social media is the potential there as well for it to add to people's anxiety, because there's again, we mentioned a second ago, an endorphin release, right? So people put up a picture on social media and all they're craving, believe it or not, is that little red thing to appear for the likes. By the way, there's a reason why they're all red, because red has a psychological effect, which is attention or danger or action. And it's forcing you to look in relation to these notifications. So it's not coincidence that they're not yellow or they're not blue or whatever it may be, right? So if somebody is going on social media and they're not getting the response that they wanted to get, so they're putting something up just purely for that, that kick that comes back in it, that can have a huge negative effect as well, because you're not getting what you're looking for. So all of a sudden now you start thinking, I'm not as good as I thought I was. I'm not as good as I was in my last photo that I put up there. I'm not as good. Maybe I should stop doing what I'm doing. Maybe I should stop sharing what. Well, you're doing what you're doing. It just so happens that you're sharing it through that medium of social media. And I think that's something where, like, we could have a podcast. Myself and Dermot did it back in the day in relation to the weaknesses that are there on social media. But I think in general, there's a huge amount to be responsible in social media and how it can add and fuel the anxiety or the confidence or the false confidence for that matter too. How many times out there are people just flooded with, that's a great shot, well done, big hats off to you. That's brilliant, absolutely. But that's about building up something which is not a reality. And then all of a sudden, if they stop commenting and stuff and it comes to the normal, then somebody still thinks that they're not good enough. So I think there's a lot to be said in relation to what social media can bring in strengths, but also from a weaknesses point of view. What's your thoughts on that?
To be honest, and I got to be very blunt, I've no time for that complaining about social media. Generally, the ones that complain about it are the bloody serial, bloody, they're the ones doing what they're complaining about. And it's like the man giving out about being stuck in traffic while he's stuck in traffic.
He is traffic.
Like, just social, as I say, right? Like, there's not once you're going to see me complain about social media, right? Now, number one is it's free, right? So if you don't like it, get off it. Number two, complaining about social media on social media. How stupid is that? Right? And I probably have I'm definitely have friends who've complained about it, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna be blunt with you too. Just cop on, Then you have these ones taking a break. I'm like, you taking a break from social media is like, say doing 10 lines of cocaine a week. Okay, well, the old cocaine's getting, it's having a bad effect on me. I'm going to stay off it now for a month, to cool myself down and to straighten myself up, and then going back on it a month later. And it's just the same cycle.
Or going on social media to tell people that you're taking a break from social media. Why? Just take a break. You're doing it for yourself.
Listen,
like you're not gonna ring up the drug dealer and go, listen, I'm not gonna do that cocaine anymore. There, don't be ringing me now at all. I really don't want to. Like, you just go off it. Like, do you know?
Like, if personally me, right? I could go a day without posting anything. I could go a week or even a month, right? No one will know any different at the end of the day, right? Simple as that. But like, really, if something is having this type of effect on you, that you feel the need to take breaks once a month, twice a week, or twice a month, or 5 times or 6 times a year, it's obviously not good for you. But the same person will tell you, don't worry about the followers, don't worry about the likes, while also commenting on every shot under the sun and liking every shot under the sun and feeling like they need to share stuff 24/7. You know what I mean? Like, just either get on with it or get off it. And I am, and I'm probably in an hour's time when I finish this, I'm probably like, oh, it's probably been a bit too harsh. But if you're not happy on social media and social media is not making you happy, just get off it. Simple as that. Like, if you are saying oh, listen, photography is about getting out and about, and who doesn't matter how many people like your image. Well, then I'd love to see the amount of people who would, and I'm only speaking from a photography perspective as well. People need to ask themselves the question: would I still do photography if it wasn't for social media? Right
Absolutely.
now, I'm probably thankful that I got into photography before I even had a Facebook account set up, and
Hmm.
it's evolved, and now it's my business. But
Hmm.
just the best thing to do is just get out, enjoy all that kind of stuff. And if you need to take a break every now and again from social media, just get off it. Don't come back. Don't tell me you're going off it as well, because I really don't care. Same way you don't
Hmm.
care. And it's like the old saying, oh, dozens of people, loads of people have been asking me where I've been the last month. People haven't been asking you, you
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
like,
Hmm. How have they been asking you? Because you haven't been on social media.
well, well, this too. But like, I've never once had someone message me being like, "Hi Bernard, I haven't seen you online in 3 days. What's going on?" Or "I haven't seen you here in a
Hmm.
week. What's going on?"
Hmm.
Not
Hmm.
once
Hmm.
ever, because social media is just like the rat race of traffic and all that kind of stuff, and the rush hour in the morning and stuff. It's just no one really cares, because we're also wrapped up in ourselves, and that's the real, including me and you.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but I'm just like, the best way I look at social media, right, is it's helped. This is from my point of view, right?
For sure.
I enjoy social media, right? I enjoy the interactions. I enjoy the crack. Um, it's helped me with my business, right? I don't do sponsor posts, and I can still manage to sell out trips, which is fantastic. But the
Hmm.
best part of social media, and I think it's something I never hear mentioned, is, say for the likes of last Saturday night. How many of them people would have been there last Saturday night at the BG Landscape Tours Christmas party if we didn't have social media?
Exactly.
None.
Absolutely.
Only me.
Yeah.
And I would have been Pablo Escobar, in the swimming pool or sitting on the swing. So, like, no one, like, everyone complains to each other. Bernard complains to Darren about social media, and Darren complains back to Bernard about social media, while the two gobshites, Darren and Bernard, forget that they're friends through social media.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly. And
so
that's the thing, Bernard, right? If you take social media for what it should be, which is a medium to be able to communicate with other people, and not to be what it actually has become, which is that trigger that people will be looking for, which is actually building an anxiety, believe it or not. And some people go, I don't care about social media. Well, if you don't care about social media, why are you constantly checking it to see how often or how many likes your photograph is after getting? If you want to share your image and use it as a depository or sell something on your business, it's there. If people see it, they see
and
it. But don't agonize over getting those likes, because that's where I think the anxiety can build up even more at the
and
negative side of social media.
I think it's important as well, because you might have some people listening being like, "Oh, it's well for Bernard not to say all this. Sure, doesn't he post stories all the time and stuff?" Don't forget, I said I enjoy it.
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
not the
Hmm.
one saying it's terrible, it's bad. Like, Jesus, my screen time pops up all the time. It's like, you have used 43% extra screen time this month.
Hmm.
Listen, that's just the way life has gone, between, like, like social media apps, news apps, sports, like, I've Now TV on the bloody phone, so I'm watching Formula One and football. That's just life. That's just the
Yeah,
way life has gone. We have the screens now, so we do tend to look. Sure, we're looking at the screen, talking to each other now. That's more screen time.
exactly.
But just get
Yeah.
on with it. And you know what? Just, I would say to people, don't push stuff just for the sake of it. And if anyone is getting into photography or into social media, just don't worry about all that kind of stuff. No one really gives a shit at the end of the day, only you. And
Hmm.
that's really the fact. And take good solid advice from people. Take constructive criticism well. And, like, you'll see people all the time praising each other, praising each other, praising each other. And if someone comes to me with a shot, I'll tell them, listen, that's nice, but what I would do is blah 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 blah. There's much more to be gained out of constructive feedback than there is about being told you're great 20 times a day, by the same people
Hmm.
every day as well, by the way. So just
Hmm.
go out,
Hmm.
enjoy it. Don't push yourself too hard. Don't push yourself to get a shot too hard, because you'll only frustrate yourself. And don't feel the pressures of social media to have to post on social media, because even algorithms and features are all a thing of the past. Hashtags, they mean nothing. They mean nothing.
Hmm.
I posted an image from Rohan Riley's workshop there in Venice, a nice long exposure that I love, and it's one of my favorite shots. Got like 230 likes. I just checked it there now, specifically to say it here now. But is my life any better or worse? No.
Exactly.
you know?
Yeah. Exactly, exactly. And
So
you got to look, you have to think about you. You have to think about yourself and not all the other things that
the
are
best
in your
the best thing to do, right,
surroundings.
is you have to look after yourself, right? But just think of social media as not about you. Think of social media about it's being social, and think of what has come of it. You've got to know so
Mm,
many people. You've got so much
agreed.
advice and tips off people. So use it again. Like we've so many thoughts every day, and if we have 49,999, or if we won, or if we have 49,999 positive thoughts and one negative
Hmm.
out of 50,000, it's that negative that
Hmm.
creeps in. But just and listen, I'm a terrible for not taking my own advice at times that I would give you or give any of the lads or the girls or whatever.
Hmm. Hmm.
um you know but just relax, don't push photography, and use it as a de-stress, and use social media as a de-stress as well. It can be done without being stressed.
100%, 100%. Great advice. Bernard, I'm going to take a quick break there, okay? And look, we'll be right back because I want to continue this fascinating conversation. So look, we'll be right back after this. If you're enjoying this episode of the Irish Photography Podcast, why not jump back and listen to the back catalogue we have of episodes, where you'll get some great insights from fantastic guests, gear reviews, lots of hints and tips, and above all else, keeping you company while you drive or relax. Thanks very much for listening. Please consider subscribing, leaving a review wherever you're listening to this podcast. Very welcome back to the Irish Photography Podcast. So, Bernard, something here as well I think that it's important that we talk about is people's perception versus reality. And, from a male point of view, you always have to be perceived as being strong, as being invincible, as being on top of your game every single day, that you can't have any downtime or you can't feel sad or, like, that's something I think which is a lot of pressure that people put on themselves every single day. I mean, from a mental health point of view, a very good phrase a number of years back is it's okay to be not okay. And I think that's an important one because if you have to be the guy on the stage that always has to perform, then that's not real because we all have down days, we all have off days. What's your thoughts in relation to that?
Well, I suppose it probably goes back to what I said earlier. So, like, in general, every single trip I do, and Jesus, touch wood, all my clients would agree. I'll always bring my A game in terms of how I perform on trips and stuff like that, and dealing with weather and certain circumstances, and plan A or option A, B, C, all these kind of things. But I just try to use what goes on in my head, and I try to just talk to clients, get to know them. And it's one thing I love about having the bus, right? Is that say from an Irish point of view, an Irish trip, having the bus, allows you to meet these clients at one location. They all jump in with you, and within 5 minutes there's pure silence, and within an hour then there's nonstop chit chat. Everyone knows each other's names, and they know the dog's name and the wife or the husband's, and like that's a very important part of photography is chatting and getting talking to people and stuff like that. And if you're on a trip where you have to follow the leader essentially, and you have a convoy of cars, you never get to know them other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Mm-hmm.
from a point of view, just to be able to chat and express opinions, or just by talking, even no matter what it's about, can help just free up that little bit of claustrophobicness that's been trapped inside you for days or weeks or whatever. But I just really try to get across, every now and again, if a client brings up a certain point, I just try to use experience that I've gone through to help them feel a bit more at ease. Like as I said, the same point as earlier is to
Mm-hmm.
just really help get to know them a little bit more deeper than just a client, or just just a participant, and get to know them and get to know things about them, because they'll appreciate that as well, and they'll become more comfortable. And
But
I'll
even from you, like you have to be the
so
leader. You have to be on point, and that's not easy to have
so
to perform every day.
So I guess where I like, if I'm having a bad day, right? As I say, they'll all get the proper me, but inside you have to be right. And that can be found. I get a lot of people say, "Oh, Bernard, I got so much inspiration from you for this," or "I came on this trip with you to be inspired." A lot of people don't realize that they're actually the ones that actually inspire me. Their reactions, their actions,
Mm-hmm.
their enthusiasms. Like, if you're having, like, the situation with Cal, he was having a bad day, came up, we made sure, hey Cal, you okay? Do you know what I mean? just by even throwing in a little joke every now and again, can really help boost someone's self-esteem. And same with mine. And I always encourage people to have the laugh with me and don't be afraid to slag me, because it can be the difference between having a bad day and being cheered up rightly with a funny joke and a funny story.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I just think I just love the reactions. Listen, you have to be an extrovert to do this, right?
Hmm.
There's no doubt about it. I seen that Comp Stomps page on Instagram sharing something earlier,
It's
and it's
funny, yeah.
this video of and it says it's like introvert trying to do for a week long photography workshop, and it's this guy losing his mind after a couple of days, and it's fairly funny. But I think you
Hmm.
have to be an extrovert. Really, if you love this, you have to be an extrovert, in my opinion. But being an extrovert allows you to just be at ease with clients a lot easier, because you do tend to open up a bit quicker. And you know what? If there's a day where you're just not invincible, because a lot of people think you're great, you never sleep, you're always on the go, all this kind of stuff. But I try to get that perception down straight away and say, you know what? Bernard loves to chill. He
Hmm.
loves to have a lie on every now and again. He loves to not be taking photos all the time. And by just chatting to people, it just gets rid of most of that, putting myself at ease with them.
Hmm.
And then what happens is, if that's done early, for the rest of the trip, it's done and done and done. And you went from, you know, them thinking you're the man and you're always on point to, Bernard, now, hope everything went all right. And, I hope you're not too tired, and Jez is safe home, and all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. I mean, look, you're kind of people can see you for the human that you are, as opposed to the machine that they see.
Exactly.
And and I think that's the most important part of it, because look, people by people, at the end of the day, we relate to people. And like, if somebody can really see that they're on the same page, that they suffer from the same things, like something actually is, motivation is an example, right? Um, there's two types of motivation. You're either motivated towards something good or away from something bad. And that comes from when we were kids and our parents would say to us, if you do that again, you're not going to get this. Or if you're good, you will get that.
Yeah.
Whatever way our parents raise us is where our bias is going towards to
Yeah.
those, right? So somebody they might be motivated that they want to have the nice house. They're going to work hard to get to the nice house. Another person goes, I have to work hard because I don't want to be living on the street.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as doing the
It's
job. It depends where the motivation comes from. Do you know what I mean?
when I was younger, when I was about 10, my mom used to smoke, and I actually like really threatened to run away if she didn't quit.
Okay.
And she's off them over 20 years, you know? And I was like, at the start, it was kind of a joke, but I made it very clear I didn't want to wake up in a house that smelled of smoke again. And they're like nearly 25 years later, she's still off them. And obviously, maybe I'm surprised she didn't smoke more, so I would run. But it was obviously it's the same example. Like it probably gave her a little bit of motivation, because from what she says, she had no intention of quitting.
Hmm. Hmm. So, like, with that in mind, and I can go back over the last year there now, I mean, with everything been shut down, you can't go on your workshops. I mean, you've lived in Dingle, you're living in Connemara at the moment. Like, how did you, number one, lose your motivation? Because you did, but how did you gain it back? What journey did you go through?
To be honest, Darren, I probably didn't lose motivation. I did go a long time, especially at the start, without shooting,
Hmm.
and I was okay with that. And it's something I always tell people. It's something you see a lot of people say online, especially. Haven't picked the camera up in 3 weeks. I don't know what's wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. You just don't want to
Hmm.
pick the camera up. But there will be a day, and this is what I say about don't force it. Do not force that photography on you. Like, don't force anything. I have a becking bike that I bought at the start of lockdown there, and I did a lot of cycling the first year and a half. But now I've obviously been away that bit more, so I haven't had the chance. And there's a perfectly good bike worth 2.5 grand sitting in there, and it's not been used in a few months. But you know what? It's there, and I'm not going to force myself to cycle, because I need a little break from traveling, and there'll come a time where the bike will be out flat out again, you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I didn't necessarily lose motivation. I just chose, I had other things that I prioritized. I made this little home office, I made this little kind of studio, started the podcast at the time, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And it just took priority, and then just family and friends of what we could see. So, yeah, it just it's about not forcing it to me. It's about
Hmm.
just letting it
Hmm.
develop naturally. And, it just came back. And just one day it was, okay, well, I don't feel I need to do this, this, and this, and this now. So I just yeah, the camera was picked up, and at the start of this year, obviously moved down to Dingle, not for inspiration or not for motivation, but because knowing we were going to go into a lockdown early this year. So I thought, right,
Yeah.
you know what, let's try it for a month while the lockdown is in, and that went on for 6 months. And it was
Hmm.
actually not like living in COVID times, because you were down, I was staying down in Ballyferter, which is so close to all the spots in Dingle, and it's
Hmm.
different down there. It's quiet in the winter anyway, so it was like no pandemic. So then I moved back to Dublin for a few months, and now I decided to come west now in Connemara, and I've been here for 3 or 4 months now. So
Hmm.
God knows how
Hmm.
long I'll stay here, but I'm living right out in the middle of the mountains. I've got a lovely stove running, heating the whole place in the rads right now, and it's just beautiful. But
Mm.
again, it's not for motivation. It's kind of partially to see where I would like to maybe settle in the future, and really lay down the roots. So
Hmm.
there was no real loss of motivation. But if someone is suffering from a loss of motivation, it's just do not push it. If you prefer to go for a hike without a camera, go for a hike without a camera. If you
Go
prefer
for
to
a
go for a
hike.
cycle, go for a cycle. If you prefer to go for a run, go for a run. Just because photography is not top of your list right now doesn't mean it won't be again.
Absolutely. And I think, look, at the end of the day, if you do something that you enjoy, you get a lot more out of it. If you feel coerced into having to do something, then you feel, it's pressure that you didn't need in the first place. That said, you know what, I don't want to do this, and now I have to go do this. It's like doing a job that you don't enjoy. You have to go out to get the money to be able to live in the house, but you're not enjoying what you're doing, and then
Yep.
that becomes the rat race and stuff like that. But like from your point of view, and specifically in relation to your business, I mean, your business was shut down. I mean, people couldn't, come on workshops because you couldn't have any groups. You couldn't go traveling and stuff like that. Financially, that must have been an absolute nightmare from your point of view. So, I mean, there's a motivation there to, when it comes back, I want to get back out and bring my workshops there. But like, tell me, how did the whole financial system now and the whole thing for the last year affect you?
Any clients here? Turn off your speakers now. No. So I suppose the first part of the pandemic was, at the start of January, well, at the end of December last year, in December 19, I bought myself a new bus. I upgraded my
Hmm.
bus. Business is going really well. And the best way to put it is, obviously I wasn't going paying straight out cash that you were going to get it, have a business loan out for that or whatever. So like I got the pandemic, the PUP, €350, but that €350 had to pay for your household bills, your
Hmm.
you know your house, your
Yeah.
food, your fuel, all this kind of stuff. The business itself got nothing, and that's the sad part. So, long story short is, applying for all these Fáilte Ireland grants, and actually I applied for so many grants and got none. Right, given
Wow.
I'm a business and I'm paying my VAT and my taxes, and bringing people in now to the country. One of the reasons I didn't get a grant was because I spent too much time abroad, right? Which I thought fair
Wow.
enough. But the funny thing is, when we opened up, but international travel didn't, they were quick to take the PUP back.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
my point
Hmm.
was, okay, so you didn't give me a grant because I'm not in Ireland enough, but now I'm only in Ireland and I can't actually leave to do my work. You're still going to take it. So that was the only financial support I had. And I don't want people feeling sorry for me, by the way. Like, things are fine and stuff like that. But in general, you've all this old money that's left, which you're trying to get off the books now, and um,
Hmm. Hmm.
just to help you move forward, and start making a living again. And in all that, then you're paying for your bus, you're paying for your insurance, your tax, your phone, your broadband, all those things. And it
Yeah.
does be
Yeah.
hard, but like, listen, thankfully, still in a healthy enough position, and very supportive people around me, and very understanding people around me. And I think that's very important, because my dad is a businessman. He knows, business inside out, and it's probably where I get a little bit of it from. But
Hmm.
yeah, listen, it's not ideal. I thought, we're here now, Christmas Eve. Obviously, we're recording this a few days previous, but I thought I would have had a lovely week of peace. And this is to put it into perspective as well. Like, I probably have about 300 people waiting to do trips, which
Wow.
is just like, it's great, but it's
Hmm.
obviously a pain as well, because you can't do these trips. And I
Yeah.
thought, right, grand, run up to Christmas, I'll have a bit of peace and quiet, and time to be able to just relax a little bit, and just chill and enjoy the Christmas. And then all of a sudden, you've these emails flooding in, and I 4 workshops in Norway from mid-January to mid-February, and all of a sudden there's all these flights starting to be cancelled,
Yeah.
changed, and it's just so much stress. Like, and it's Christmas week. Do you know what I mean? And again, I'm so lucky. Like clients being like, Bernard, listen, it's tough for us all. We want to go. We'll go eventually, but we want you to just chill before Christmas now. And it's nice to get that, but this is where the anxiety kicks in. This is where
Mm.
the anxiety. And it's so funny because like my mom and dad are very hard working, like very hard working. My mom would be like, if you need money, we'll give you money. And I'm like, it's not about the money. Like this is about anxiety. It's about, uncertainty. Whereas my dad would see that side. My
Yeah.
mom just thinks, well, if I gave him a few bob, it would help him. And
Yeah.
it would, but that's not the issue. The issue is
Hmm.
the uncertainty, the anxiety. It, Listen, let's be honest. Let's call a spade here. The government, I know they have to bring in restrictions, but the amount of head fucking that's been going on with
Mm.
people's lives is nothing short of fucking disgraceful, right? And
It's
I
ridiculous.
don't like cursing like this as well, but I suppose it just does get you that bit angry because you have so many people coming out and saying so many different things, and I'm like, why not just have one spokesman? Like you have
Hmm.
Taoiseachs, or tarnished as health ministers, bloody education ministers. You have Nyack, Neffet, feckin' so many people, and then people within them, groups or parties coming out, and they really don't understand the damage that they're doing to people's health. I'm very lucky. I have got like, I've said it time and time again. I'm so lucky to have the people, friends, family around me that I have, right?
Hmm.
But there's
Hmm.
plenty of people out there that don't.
That
And
don't.
if your mind wanders and wanders and wanders, that's not good. A mind wanders. But again, I'm very thankful for the support I have. And I can pick up and call 20 people at one time and be able to chat. But that's the worst part of it. It's not about the financial part or the not being able to do trips part. It's about this head fucking that's going on, leading
Hmm.
up the garden path when and also like these, oh, we know what you're going through. Pull the other one, cut your fucking salaries down to
Yeah.
350 a week for a year and a half. Give us
Yeah.
what's remaining and see how you find it then, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. And the other side to it too is this: is that you say about the uncertainty, right? And the messing with people's heads. I mean, there's a big problem coming down the line here, not only just from the adult
A
population,
mental
but
health
even
pandemic, like epidemic.
huge, huge, because not only from the adult population, but even the younger population, and even the kids now, even my own kids here. My kids are 5 and 7, but they know, and they've been living in COVID for the last 2 years. They know in relation to that. People who have tried to earn a living, you go, okay, I can open my door. All right, I'm going to put all this work in to open my door, and all of a sudden, bang, it's shut down because one guy said that we can't do this, and then everybody else takes that advice, and it's
Yeah.
gone. Like your own point of view, and it's important. I think then you said it as well. You're very lucky that you've got 300 people that are loyal to you and going, Bernard, I'll get there whenever I get there. Don't you panic. But like each time, look at the amount of work you've had to do
So
to set up a workshop, get the whole thing organized, book everything, and all of a sudden it's been
but
pulled from the rug underneath you.
this is the thing, like, and just as I say, what happened there this week about all these flights in Norway, right? Now, flights are not I do my own flights and everyone else does their own flights, right? They're not included
Mhm.
in trips. But you have people coming at you and at you and at you, and you're there trying to sort out flight alternatives. And you're not doing it for you, you're doing it for them. And
Mhm.
it's a like this is another thing, and I don't know. Listen, if they realize it, like, because everyone comes, what will we do now? What we do now? And we can go on Skyscanner and look at different flights, but you do it because you're used to it. You do it because you've done this route so many times. And
Yeah.
my dad made a good point, and he said, Bernard, at the end of the day, he says there comes a time when you have to look after number one, because he says, from what I can see, everything you're doing now is to look after everyone else and put more hardship on yourself. And that's just me. And do you know what the funny thing is? He tells me that, right? He tells me that. But if he was in the same situation, he would do the very same,
Oh yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But that's another, like, it's one thing people coming, oh, oh, burn, the flights are fecked up, and Norwegian Airlines coming saying the flights are fecked up. But it's another thing, me sitting down for hours on end trying to see if there's a way around this, and just
Mhm.
to tell them,
Mhm.
listen, guys, these are the flights you need to book now. You know,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
it's just one of those things that you do. You're not getting anything from it. There's no financial gain for doing this, but it's just the right thing to do,
And
because I want
you're, I
these
mean,
trips to happen.
exactly. And look, I mean, you're looking after your clients. You're letting them know that you're there for them. It's a huge amount of work that you have to do every single time. And as you say, you're getting nothing. Not that you should get anything for it, but you're getting nothing for the short term period from a support point of view. It's just that goalpost has been made wider and wider and wider. And in fact, you can't even see one side of the goalpost now because you don't know where it's going to be in January, February, March, April, May, or whatever it might be from next year. So, like, the work that you have to do is worthwhile doing it because you're keeping your clients on board and saying, look, don't worry, I'll try and source something for you. But do you ever get frustrated that you do all this work and then all of a sudden, bang, it's gone and the whole thing has been closed out again just after you getting the whole thing
Like,
reorganized?
listen, like I spent the last 2 years doing this and reorganizing, and 90% of the time it's for nothing. But
Hmm.
if you don't have it ready to go and there's that 10% possibility it happens, you'd be left behind. So essentially, like, sure, I went a year creating trips thinking, we don't need another month or two of this, a month or two of this. And most trips were just ended up being deleted because like they were never going to happen. And what
Hmm.
happens is more
Hmm.
people are booking and booking and booking. But as I say, like the main part of this is that I can't begin to thank people if anyone of my clients are listening of how understanding people have been through this. It's incredible.
Hmm.
And the the biggest positive you can take out of this is that, as frustrating as it is, if I get a message from someone to say, Bernard, listen, put away the phone, put away the computer, go take a few photos, enjoy the Christmas. You know, my life's not going to change in the next week. Your life's not going to change. Don't beat yourself up. I will get to Norway with you at some stage. And when it happens, it
Hmm.
happens. But for now,
Hmm.
forget about it. You know,
Hmm.
I'm not going
Hmm.
anywhere. You're not going anywhere. Norway's not going anywhere. It's messages like that. And I've got a lot of them, like hundreds of them, over the last couple of years. And I tell you, like, one thing, if there's anything that's ever going to cheer you up, it's how understanding people are.
And look, you've built up a huge mental resilience over the last year, believe it or not, even that you've having to deal with all these different complexities and manage the expectations of your clients. But also don't think, the client's point of view, like they were looking at this as their getaway, their escape from reality. And that's been the rug from pulling underneath there. So there's disappointment there as well. But it's about saying, I'll get there and I want to get there with you. So, like, we just touched on a moment ago in regards to this, this epidemic of mental health issues that's going to be coming down the line. But there's nothing being put there in place for people to understand these things. There's nothing, there's no guidebooks being out there. There's nothing in resources in relation to it. And I think that's where we're going to have the problem because, like, your mind will wander at the best of times. But now you put so much uncertainty into it. Like everybody likes to know where they are. Everybody likes to know what's happening. But more importantly, everybody needs something to look forward to.
Yeah.
And like, we're coming up to Christmas now. And again, like, people are, well, once I get over Christmas now, January will be fine. But like, even already, they're saying, be ready because January is going to see the biggest numbers we've seen ever. And I mean, that then is just putting more anxiety into the general population.
Yeah.
And outside of that, then is, wow, where, like, how can people learn and develop the skills themselves when they don't even know what skills they need to develop
Yeah.
and what's going to be coming that they need to overcome in the next couple of weeks?
And the mad thing about it is as well, right? Because I'm looking at obviously options and the possibility of having to sign on to the PUP again, in the very near future. And the sickening part about it is not only if you go and apply for the PUP, but from what I can see on the website is they're not going to base it on you've lost your business temporarily or your work temporarily, but they're also going to make you go into the post office and fucking collect it.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? Like, listen, I've never been on the dole, right? And if you're on the dole, you're on the dole. It's not really, any of my business. But
Hmm.
do I personally want to be seen to go into the post office to collect a couple of £100, on a temporary basis? Number one, the nearest post office is half an hour from me, right? So
Yeah.
you're already struggling financially and mentally, already without having to drive
Hmm.
half an hour in, half an hour home, wasting
And
more
Q.
money, fuel,
And Q.
and queue, and it's more of a risk. And like, it's just crazy. And then you have the other side of it. Then you have people ringing you from their offices in Cork saying, "Well, have you looked for other work?" And I'm like, "Yeah," because I would look so well going and looking for another job after I put in my life into this business, a successful
Hmm.
business, only for
Hmm.
it to be taken away temporarily by COVID. But these people think you're sitting at home doing nothing. They
Mm.
think you're,
Hmm.
well, if you're not on a tour, you're not doing nothing. They don't see the work going into your website or your social media, or you're dealing with emails, clients, flights, your revenue things and stuff like that. And it's just they're on another planet. And are you looking for? Would you get another job? Oh yeah, because I go on and get another job down the road, and next thing, the flick of a switch, everything opens up again, and I have to go and leave that job and go back to doing me tours, only to be probably shut down again. And then
Hmm.
where does that leave me? I've just walked out of a job. Like, it's easy for someone who's getting a pay packet every week, no matter what, to
Yeah.
dictate to you how you should live your life and where you
Yeah.
should focus your energy. But the reality of it is, and I've always said this, I'm not big into politics, but I think the politics in Ireland should be made up, and probably everywhere should be made up of 50% public and 50% private. At least there's
Mm.
somewhat bit of, you know, um, sense in there, maybe. At the end of the day, our politicians are getting paid more than the US president, and that says it all.
And look, you've got politicians as well, and no offense to anybody that's in any of these business, any of these professions, like that are teachers, or Vradker is a doctor, and a doctor, he should be using his time to actually help people instead of coming up with these whack job ideas that are out there. I mean, there's nobody there in a business acumen to understand the implications of what they are pushing on the country, the citizens of the country, and what the impacts not only today, but what are the impacts of this? Like, how much is COVID costing us? How much is all
Well,
this costing
at
the
the at the
nation? Like,
at
there's
the at the
nothing consideration there.
at the end of the day, we were told a year ago the schools were not the cause, and then all of a sudden September came, October came, November came. We had this massive spike, which they cannot blame on Omicron because these were spiking before that. So
Hmm.
now they're saying the schools aren't safe, and before the Panto was cancelled, don't bring your kids to the Panto. And the
Yeah.
reality was, me, you, and 10 other people could go for a pint, but your child was told not to go on a play date with his friend. So, like, I get it's a new disease and stuff. And listen, we really shouldn't dwell on it too much.
For sure, for sure. But
But
it is a big factor, Bernard. It
it's a
is a big
huge
factor that we're
factor.
dealing with
Listen,
at the moment.
it's a huge factor. You're just being spun absolute spiel, and I get they need to do certain restrictions, but some of this stuff, like, is just, it's like the €9 meal. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, I
they
don't
would have been
understand
as
that.
well off just closing the pubs, really, right? Because closing them at 5 is one thing. That was a bit silly. But closing them at 8, that does bring people out for a few hours. And then, sure, it's 8 o'clock. The night's still young. Sure, 12 of us will bail back to such and such's house. Now, I do enjoy an old pint or whatever, and I do want to see the pubs open. I think the best place to be in a controlled environment while drinking is the pubs. I think by
Hmm.
closing them at 8, you're just actually going to cause a bigger problem. But me
Absolutely.
personally, they should have stayed as they were. And
Well, I think that the reason why they closed the pubs at 8 o'clock now is because they were fearful in relation to New Year's Eve and what's going to happen at the whole famous 12 o'clock. It's going to be 12 o'clock, pubs are closing at 12 o'clock. How are
yeah,
you going to celebrate New Year's Eve? All you're doing, exactly as you say there, is pushing people into a house party, which people want to celebrate the New Year. They want to they wanted to get rid of 2020. They weren't allowed to do that. Now they want to get rid of 2021. You're not allowed to do that either.
well,
So, like,
here's the way to look at it. Right now, listen, I'm no expert on this, by the way. But it's, I suppose, fact over anything else. Like, the peak was coming, and they opened up the pubs and restaurants as the peak was coming. Right?
hmm
It didn't
hmm
get much worse. It really
hmm
didn't.
hmm
And they're the first things to close down. Right? The peak
scapegoats.
was coming before this, this variant came in and stuff like that. And now they're closing down all of a sudden. And again, we don't know much about Omicron. I definitely don't.
I don't
You're
either.
hearing things, it's more transmissible but milder. To me, if
Hmm.
that is the case, if, right, again, I've no scientific evidence behind this, but just what you're hearing people from different sources say, if it is, that's, to me, is the 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 variant you want, right?
hmm
But
hmm
we've opened up the pubs and restaurants as the cases were spiraling out of control, and we've closed them when cases, hospitalizations and ICUs are down 10% in the last week.
Yeah, and I think this is the thing about it, right? And just to go back to the subject in relation to mental health, right? I know I've mentioned this to you as well, off air, but there's a flaw in the human psyche, right? And it's a very simple thing, is that you will remember the things that happen to you most less. So, for example, if I'm working with you and I tell you out of 6 days, Bernard, you're great, boy, you're fantastic, and you'll take that for granted. And it's the one day I come in and I go, Bernard, that's shit. You'll remember that a lot more than all the 6 times I told you were great. Now, flip side to this is we're now dealing with perpetual negativity. It's constant. Every single day you turn on the news, it's news of negativity, negativity, negativity. The opposite won't happen here is that if you get one bit of good news that you're going to remember that. You're not going to remember that now because you're so flooded with the same story, the same narrative, just a different spin in it. And I mean, like you say there in relation to hospital numbers, I think the main reason why all this is knee-jerk reactions is because, and it's not my opinion, it's fact, is our health system is not a very strong health system. So it doesn't have the capacity to be able to deal with these things,
Well,
right?
it's
So
been
it's a case of
yeah, it's
what?
listen again. I'm really not that too much into politics. I do have to keep an eye on certain parts of the news and restrictions and
Hmm.
announcements because of what I do. But I do know for certain that, we've been crying out for, better quality hospitals and HSE,
For the last
capacity
30
for the
years.
last 30 years since, the start Mary Harney and,
Yeah.
like it's fact at the end of the day.
It is.
Put it this way,
And
there's
look,
there's more fact and evidence in that than there is in pubs and restaurants being super spreaders.
and the other thing as well, look, and I mean, probably the last thing I'd say to you in relation to COVID is that, we've been spun so many different tales that haven't come true in relation to it. Get the vaccine, you'll be perfectly fine. We can go back to normality. Get the second vaccine, we can go back to normality. Get your booster, we can go back to normality. I was listening on Pat Kenny there last week, and Varadkar was on. He said one thing, which was he got 1.2 million people in the country that have a third and fourth booster. I was like, what? Fourth booster? What are you talking about? We're only talking about the third one right now. So I don't know where this fourth came from, but what does that tell you?
Yeah.
That is something that, we have been dealing with for a number of years in relation to flu jabs. Absolutely, something it is that we have to be conscious and listen to the medical people. I'm not anywhere in relation to qualified to talk in relation to that. But why not be open and honest here and say, lads, do you know what? Look, it's going to be among us here as it is. Get your vaccination and we'll try and live your life as much as we can. And we can try and help you to plan something out. But we
Ex-
can't even do that now.
exactly, like it is. And like obviously people have gone through tough times. These, as I say, my mom was vaccinated and she had it fairly bad.
Exactly.
And plus on top of that was the isolation, living with my dad, sleeping in separate rooms, my dad dropping the dinner at the door, didn't living in the same house but not actually seeing her for 10 days. you
Wow.
know like there's the isolation part as well as the symptoms. But even like my parents, including my mom, is just like, you know like we just you cannot it's not like, listen, I have dozens of clients who were super 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 nervous and super afraid, and they're like, they've told me openly, oh Bernard, like, I just don't care anymore. And not that they don't care, but they just realized like they're maybe not getting any younger. Like at the end of the day, this is a time where we're able to do less, and
Mhm,
time should
mhm,
probably be slowing down a little bit, but actually time is
mhm.
just flying. The last 2 years have flown.
Absolutely.
And it's okay for me, maybe mid-30s, you know what I mean? I can recover from this, or, but the younger side of it and the older side of it, if you're younger, you're scarred. If you're
Mhm,
older, you're not getting them 2 years back. And it's probably going to be another year again, you know?
mhm, mhm, mhm. And like, what can we do? What can we do to help people around us, Bernard? I mean, look, like we've kind of started out here in relation to the whole importance of, understanding mental health first and foremost and the challenges that are there. Like, what can we do as human beings? Like, we can reach out to the people that we know and ask them, "Are you okay?" Now, there's a stigma in relation to it. I'm grand, I'm grand, I'm grand. But how do you break down that barrier? How do you actually get people to go, you know what? I'm not okay.
Uh, I think what I like, so this is a kind of phrase I go by, and it's just treat people as they're a banana, right?
Okay.
And peel them back one bit at a time, and just get to know them, get to see what they're thinking, and just use their experiences to help you and use your experiences to help them. And it is
Hmm.
the same cliche, talk to your friends and stuff. And if there's one thing, and all the lads, Jesus, like, Mac Snap, Keane, Declan, Eric, Ruben, Ian, Anto, Milo, and the Keith Arkins. The list goes on, right? Mark Fletcher.
Hmm.
I feel like I need to nearly name them all now, but like, just I've never met such a good group of people like than I have through photography, and clients as well that are
Hmm.
just always there for you. Like, and you'll always be there for them. And I think that's very important. But like something a few weeks ago, or a couple months ago, well, a few weeks ago happened. I was in Kong getting a coffee, and I was sitting outside, and there was this woman that she didn't have like a vaccine cert or anything. So she just put the head in the door and says, "Can I get a coffee?" And your man says, "Yeah, no bother." And gets a coffee anyway. And she was going. She sat outside as well in another chair, and she went to pay. And your man says, "Oh, they don't take cash at the moment, right?" Which is fair enough. It's a
Hmm.
bit mad, but they don't take cash. You only take card. She says, "I've no card with me. I've only cash." And he said, "No, it's grand." And she goes, "I'll drop it down later on. I promise. I promise." And you could tell she was that kind of worried, you know.
Yeah.
So like, she went and sat back down anyway, and I went in, put on my mask, went in to pay, and I said, "Listen, just say nothing. But that woman there, just I'm gonna pay for her coffee." But I says,
Hmm.
"If you're gonna tell her, you'll obviously have to tell her because maybe she'll come back and pay, and you have to tell her not to come back and pay. But do not tell her until I'm gone."
Hmm.
And I just went on, and I seen another thing literally on Facebook just today actually, where this woman in on one of the Killarney pages on Facebook put up a thing how basically, and you could tell by the way it was worded, it was desperation. It was like, "Guys, my daughter lost her 25 euros Christmas money in the car park of Tesco's today. Do you know if anyone maybe found it or anything? Because please get it back." You know,
Hmm.
she's devastated. And some guy just literally puts in, "Just left 50 quid behind the counter in Tesco's for her. Have a good Christmas." Like,
There you go.
those are financial things, but they're very like, what's very little for me and you could be major for someone else. So just being that little bit more conscious, and just be kind of wary, and open to how people's, like, what I like doing at Christmas is going in around Dublin City with about 50 quid in my pocket full of fivers and just giving it to different people. And
Hmm.
it's not
Hmm.
something I'm gonna spread around on social media and stuff. And I've done it for the past 4 or 5 years. It does give me a sense of enjoyment, and you'd be surprised how many hugs you get, and thank yous from normal people who, I don't know from Adam. Maybe they're
Hmm.
into drugs, maybe they're not, maybe they've fallen on hard times, maybe they haven't, and they're just chancers. I don't know, but the amount of positive reactions I've got from that by just going and giving 10 different people 5 quid, it's just unreal. And so just be conscious of people around you. And if you do hear a bit of a story about someone, earwigging or whatever, or you just know a friend that maybe just down a little bit, or has maybe recently lost someone, be it a relationship or a family member to COVID even, just be
Hmm.
wary and just drop them a message, and ask them if they want to go for a drink or a bit of grub. Yes, before 8 o'clock, but just encourage them. Like Cal the other day, didn't want to go to the Glenmalure Lodge and stay at night. It wasn't feeling good, but giving him that push he needed to come down, and said one of the best nights he's ever had,
Mm.
and ends up
Mm.
spending 210 quid on drink with Declan and had an amazing time. And the two lads, you know, Declan was on to me the day after how funny Cal was, and Cal was on telling me how funny Declan was. And they
Yeah.
didn't really
Yeah.
know each other before that. And that's going to make a big difference to them, because now they're messaging and sharing flashbacks on WhatsApp, you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
So it's
Hmm.
just little things, little things.
And I think the most important part there from that is just to reach out to people, ask them, how are things? Do you want to go for a coffee? I mean, even on that, somebody may not have been asked to go for a coffee in months. And that's like the simple situation, a simple little gesture. Doesn't even have to be financial. It's an ear for somebody to listen to
Yeah.
in relation to the challenges. And I liked your analogy of the banana, because when you said about the banana, I said, okay, when you peel back the banana, it's a softy inside. And we're all a softy inside. And I
Unless
think
it's one
that's
of
the
those
important
green
part.
ones and
Yeah,
has been in the
exactly. Yeah.
fridge.
Yeah, exactly. But we are all soft inside. And at the end of the
Listen,
day, you put up a hard exterior.
if,
But yeah, it's have that conversation and open up. Even you're opening up from your own point of view to
man,
somebody,
I
they'll
have
open back.
just opened up more times than I ever care to imagine I would have in the last few months, to strangers, friends
Hmm.
here tonight,
Hmm.
possibly in the
Yeah.
podcast, about how I felt. And, like, at the end of the day, I probably would have thought it was weakness. and now I
It's
don't.
not.
It's
It's a
complete
strength.
opposite, and it's such a cliche as well, and they're all cliches, but they probably shouldn't be. But just literally, don't be afraid. And if you do have a friend, that's in a bit of bother, don't approach it and say, "Here, talk to me." Just as I
Hmm.
say, use that banana and fucking peel them
Yeah.
back, and I'm telling you, they will open up, and an hour later, it's going to be bang, and that just opens the floodgates. Then, you know.
Hmm. 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 Absolutely. And look, be there for one another.
Another little
That's the
tip,
important
right?
part.
Another little tip, right? That's what I found helps me. So if you feel a little bit down and you will openly go and talk to a friend, say I'm feeling a bit down and I'm going to talk to you, but I'm a bit skeptical. What I actually found, here's the funny thing, is think, just play a couple of songs that make you feel emotionally happy or emotionally sad, and it gets you either in that state of happiness where you want to share something good, or it gets you in that emotional state where you're willing to open up, because you're feeling vulnerable,
Hmm.
and that's just a
Hmm.
little thing that works for me.
I fully agree with you on that, actually, because we're all vulnerable at the end of the day, Bernard. And I mean, look, we're all human at the end of the day. We all have exactly the same emotions at the end of the day. So, like Roy Keane, ha ha, at the end of the day. But like we are
Yeah.
at the end of the day, all exactly the same. And whether or not you can admit it to yourself is the first step. But it's hard to say to somebody, you know what, I'm not okay,
Yep.
and I need to be able to say something, get something off your chest. And you probably will find that the person that you're talking to has exactly the same thoughts, feelings, and emotions as you.
So
Because we're not different, you know?
I have like again, I could like we could go on with this for hours, right? So I had a girl on a workshop in Dingle a few weeks ago, and it was amazing. We got the winter conditions that we were after and the huge waves, but she forgot her charger for her camera, right? And then and actually this is another thing actually where someone can help. She had a Nikon. She forgot her charger. She only had two batteries, and it was a Nikon 3400, so the batteries don't last that long. But one of the other guys had a spare Nikon, and different batteries. But he said, "Listen, I'll let you use this Saturday, you know, and I will need it Sunday because that's the lens, that's the camera for my long lens. So,
Hmm.
and the waves are going to be there. So for Saturday, she had her two batteries on the Friday. She had a camera, his camera with a charger and batteries on the Saturday. And then the Sunday, I just said, I'm putting my camera in aperture and we're going to underexpose ever so slightly. Here's a tripod. Here's my Sony with the 200 to 600. Have fun. And like, it's all those little things. Like, she went from not like thinking her weekend is ruined to like
Hmm.
going home
Hmm.
ecstatic. And she actually
Hmm.
said, like, "Oh, I'm so stupid. Like, Jesus, leaving my bloody,
Charger.
charger at home. Like, like how stupid." And I was like, "Listen, the way to look at that is like, you think now you're the only one that's ever left your charger at home. But the reality of it is, any situation you've ever got yourself into, be it good or bad, you can be guaranteed you're not the first person for that exact situation." And she
Yeah.
actually got on and she Googled like little forums and stuff about people forgetting batteries and chargers and SD cards. And she was like, "Oh, you're right. There's thousands of people with things on forums online." And I was like, "I told you." So
Mm.
whatever we do, like we're never like we're there's very rarely anything now that you can do that's new, right? That you're the
Hmm.
first
Hmm.
person to do such and such. So generally leaving all these kinds of stuff, chargers, SD cards, there will be thousands of others that have done it. So don't be too hard on yourself.
Yeah, and look, even go back to what you said at the beginning about how people being anxious and stuff like that. Everybody has the same things. I mean, she would have been anxious to go, "Oh, geez, I forgot my
Yeah.
charger. I can't say it." Like, these are falsenesses that we build up in our own mind, which aren't a reality. And just turn around and go, "You know what? I need help." And that might be help in relation to a charger, might be help into a camera equipment, or more importantly, it could be do with you who you are.
Yep.
And I think it's important that we, even if from a summary point of view in it, Bernard, like we talk in relation to how we feel more often, be it good, bad, or indifferent. And then that becomes your own narrative that you're able to repeat in your own head, as opposed to not being able to share it with somebody. And now you're just listening to more negativity. And then all of a sudden you're gone into that spiral of negativity. And it's much harder to go back up those 10 steps when in actual fact, when you were only 2 steps down that stairway. And I turned to Bernard and said, "Bernard, you know what? I'm not feeling good. All right, come on, let's go do something. Even
Yep.
go, let's grab a coffee, let's go for a walk, go to the beach, go yourself in relation to it." But it's important to just nip it early in the bud
Yeah.
because it's much easier to be able to bring it back up to the level that you need to be at. And I think more importantly for me is, share your feelings with
Well,
people.
like a few weeks ago, and I understand we're running an hour and a half now, but I think people will probably enjoy this, and plenty of time to listen to it over the Christmas. But even a few weeks ago, I wasn't feeling myself, and again, I'm very lucky to have so many people around me, and I just rang Milo and Declan, and happened to be a Formula One race on, and this was like Thursday, and do you know what? I actually I just wasn't feeling myself, and I'd kind of plans, and I said I couldn't go through with them. I just wanted to kind of take a different approach to the weekend, and I said to Milo, listen, fancy coming over, and I didn't let on anything was wrong, and he came over anyway on the
Hmm.
Friday. The Friday evening, we went down to Clonbur, local village just down the road, and we got a bit of grub, and we spent the whole bit of food in the pub chatting, just
Hmm.
general chit chat about our experiences, and Milo, obviously being a bit older, was able to give a little bit of kind of further advice,
His experiences, yeah.
so and that's what the whole meal was about, was us talking. There was no talk about photography, football, nothing. It was just about us. And
Hmm.
then, of course, Declan came down on the Saturday, and sure, it was just great crack, and it lined it up for a great weekend. And I went into the weekend feeling a lot better after having the few chats at Milo. And so it's just not to be afraid to talk. And if you
Mm.
don't feel comfortable talking to a friend, just talk to a stranger. Like, there'll be strangers popping in and out of your life. You know, everyone wants to talk now. You go to a shop now, and if it's not that busy, and you give in your can of Coke or whatever, and you say, just grand weather. Yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah. Just terrible COVID, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, and a conversation can develop so quickly, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
And the other side to it too, though, is you ask somebody how are things? Grand.
yeah,
That's the general answer, and like rarely I think would someone turn and go, do you know what? It's absolutely diabolical. I'm
yeah.
in an awful place at the moment. I've had nobody to talk to about it in the last number of months, and I'd love somebody just to be able to listen to my issues
Yeah, and
because everybody's internalizing their own issues, thinking that they're their own, but that person that you're talking to has gone through the same thing more than likely.
yep, 100%, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, look, Bernard, I have enjoyed this conversation. It's a kind of a Christmas conversation with a difference in reality because I think it is something that's a conversation that needs to be had. I think it's a conversation that, everybody will, I hope, get something from and relate to most of what we've spoken about, if not all of what we've spoken about, because, there's a number of things, like I said, that people can learn from when they look at it and realize and say, you know what, I need to get some help from a therapy point of view, or what I even maybe your friends can be your therapy. Somebody that you don't know could be a lot easier to speak to than somebody who you know. Because what are they going to think to me? They're going to, as you say, am I going to be perceived as weak? That's grand. It's easy for me to say to somebody that doesn't know who I am or whatever it may be. But we're
Yeah.
human at the
The,
end of
the,
the day,
listen, from my experience, and I would have had a pretty close mind to it. I wouldn't have often opened up too much, but from my experience, like, literally 100% of people I've spoke to, and it could be 50 people about different things, have all come back with experiences of their own, and all of a sudden you've not one problem halved, you've two, because they're opened up to you then as well. So I think it's really important. And just, I suppose I'll end with, just I hope everybody has a great Christmas. And if Christmas isn't your thing, reach out to a friend. Personally, me, um I'm going to be at home in Newbridge with my parents Christmas Day, and if
hmm
someone should want to just not do anything, I gonna be literally, I've kept a real open mind for the next few weeks, and I'm willing to take off, Christmas night somewhere to
hmm
take photos. Stephen's Day, 27, 28. So if someone is in a bit of bother, and would like to just kind of have a shoot maybe on Stephen's Day or whatever, feel free to reach out.
Absolutely, and I think that's important. I mean, like Christmas can be that lull period between Christmas and New Year as well is also another challenging
Yeah.
time because we
Yeah.
build ourselves up to Christmas Day with all these high expectations, and then it comes to Christmas morning, you're like, all right, it's done. Have the dinner. What are we going to do
Yeah.
now? Fall
Literally.
asleep
Yeah.
on the couch. And what am I going to do after that? Wait till I go back to work in the start of January. So I think that lull period is an important one, I think, for a lot of people as well, just to, reach out. And I think one other point that I kind of finish on that as well is there are a couple of resources that are available online. I mean, there's one there, which is the mentalhealthireland.ie. They've got some good resources there for people to be able to look into and just to see, like, I'm not alone in relation to it. I have these issues and these challenges, but they're not as big as what I'm making them out to be. And I can get assistance in dealing with them. So look, I'll put the link to that in the show notes and stuff as well, because it is important for people to know that there is others there that will listen. And it is okay to not be okay,
100%. And as well, just one very last thing is, when we talk about we should be grateful, we should be happy, we should, like, I would have thought to myself, I should be way happier. Like, sure, look at my job. I've got a good, healthy family. I've got a beautiful dog. Like, I live in Connemara. I should be this and I should be that. But actually, we shouldn't be anything.
Agreed.
Like, we shouldn't be anything. We shouldn't be happy because we have materialistic things. We should just be who we are and
Human.
be how we feel and be human, and we should or shouldn't be anything else. And if you have everything in the world, well, if you're still not happy, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and look, outwardly is one thing, inwardly is more important. And like, you look at people out there that would be the biggest entertainers and they're the happiest people on an outwardly basis, but internally they're not. And I think that's where
Robin Williams. There you go. Nothing
Perfect.
else needs
Perfect.
said. Nothing else
Perfect
needs
example.
said,
Yeah, perfect example. All right, look, Bernard, I've really enjoyed the chat. Hopefully you have a good Christmas. I'll try and meet up with you if I can. But obviously it's challenging for me to get out because of the kids. But yeah, I'll try and meet up with you.
Need to get you to Wicklow to these waterfalls.
Yeah, I do. I do need to get to Wicklow. So maybe around Christmas will be a nice time for me to be able to lose my cherry in the Wicklow waterfalls. Yeah. I didn't say pop it.
No,
it's all right.
No, but it was great to chat. Absolutely. Really, I'm delighted to get this kind of chat off my chest, because obviously I've been a few weeks or probably even a couple of months, in the making now. So it feels good to get it out there.
Yeah, look, it was really, really good. Thanks everybody for listening. We'd love to hear your comments as well. Look, on the Instagram or on our Facebook group and such like that. And thanks for a very good year from the Irish Photography Podcast. And I'll see everybody next year in 2022. Bernard will get it back on as well in 2022, I think, as well also.
Yep, Darren, absolutely no problem. And everybody, happy Christmas. And enjoy the turkey and ham and a few beers. And if you feel like going to take a few photos, do. If you don't. Simple.
Exactly. All right. Thanks a million, boy. Slán go fóill, everybody. Slán go fóill.
Hey guys, if you dig what you're hearing, why don't you jump over to iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating and don't forget to share with your friends. With all that done, we'll see you next week. And remember, keep shooting.